Hi everyone, I've been having a lot of questions on how I made my Sir Didymus. So I've put some pictures together with some voiceover and hopefully might help a few of you out. So here goes. I wanted something as a base I could work off and found this meerkat for £1 and it had quite long legs, so it was a good starting point. First thing I did was cut off his nose and mouth and inserted a piece of cardboard. I bought a nose off Temu, stuffed some stuffing under the cardboard and glued the nose in place. I cut another piece of card in the shape of a lower jaw and wrapped it in fur and pinned it underneath. I then cut off pieces of fur and flocked it on around the nose just by gluing and sticking on. I made eyebrows by wrapping some foil and then gluing some fur around that. I glued the eyebrows in place and then painted inside the bottom jaw black. Added more flock into the face and it was starting to take shape. I'd never done flocking before. It was messy, very sticky. So basically I was just cutting the edge of the fur off, putting it into a bowl, using fabric glue, gluing on and then dabbing the fur on over the top. Little bits at a time I found, otherwise it got really messy. I made his little teeth from cutting up a piece of cardboard box and gluing it to the bottom jaw and the top. I needed something to extend the legs and the arms, so my son's IKEA horse was perfect. So chopped the legs off, wrapped the legs around the body and stitched it really roughly just so they held onto the fur that was already underneath. Bought this fur off Temu, really cheap, and again I just cut out chunks, wrapped it around, stitched it on as best I could and hope for the best. For the hat, blue velvet material, a circle plate, craft wire in a circle, just slightly smaller, lip the edges over the craft wire and stitch it up. For the jacket, I started cutting some red velvet front and back, sewed it together whilst it was attached. For the sleeves, just 2 pieces of gold velvet that I wrapped around and stitched the red whilst it was attached to the body. And then I just layered up by stitching the ribbon onto gold fabric and then cutting around it and then stitching them onto the red velvet. I added longer fur to the face and in different places and added buttons to the jacket. For the tail, I cut a rectangle piece of the long haired fabric. The tail on the meerkat I split, twisted around and re-sewed it to the body so it was facing the other way and just looped this piece of fabric around the tail to give it a bushy effect. For the gloves, I drew a random pattern on paper and then transferred it to the leather look green material and cut it out. I stitched them together as best I could and then fastened them to Sir Didymus by tying them as tight as I could. For the eye patch, I just cut up an old purse that I had with a leather type look material and glued it on. For his armour, I cut out shapes from this material and sewed it to his knees and the back of the gloves. I added white fur to his feet, put a feather in his cap and I'd already made Ambrosius's blanket. And here he is. Let me know what you think.